Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I'm Paul Stevens, editor of Short-Term Rentals, and welcome to this Rockstars 5.0 webinar, the first of 2022, on defining the new era of luxury, sponsored by Flywire and NoiseAware. It's me, Paul Stevens, the host for today's session, and I'm now going to pass over to Nate Crisciuolo from our Rockstars series sponsor, Flywire, and he's going to tell you a bit about his company. So over to you, Nate.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. It's a pleasure to be here. Hello, everyone. As you mentioned, my name is Nate Crisciuolo. I'm working at Flywire today, working with hospitality companies around the globe to improve their payment experience. So we're thrilled to be here today, not only as a proud partner of IHM, but we're specifically focused on the travel industry, working with luxury accommodation providers all around the world. So for those of you in the audience today that might not be familiar with who Flywire is, we're a global payments company, and what we do is combine our vertical software and our payments network to help both short-term accommodation providers and other travel operators more easily manage their payments and then allow their guests to pay them in their local currency, no matter where they are in the world. So I know with COVID and everything that's been going on the past couple of years, it's been a challenge for all of us, but we're really excited about the progress that we've made with our clients, the value that we've driven for our clients over the past few years, as we look to streamline their operations and reduce their costs when accepting payments. So again, pleasure to be here. If anyone has any questions for me, wants to be introduced, please feel free to reach out directly. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Nate, and I hope you'll be hanging around for today's session, especially as we've got your luxury traveller study coming up. So with today's webinar guidelines, please keep your sound on mute and your camera off if you're not speaking. I'm being ably assisted by my colleagues Joe and Flor today, and Danique, and all the details are in the chat, so please do post any questions you have there as well. A recording will be sent to everyone after the session today. And our other Rockstars sponsor for today is NoiseAware. They're a privacy-safe smart noise monitoring solution for short-term rental property managers and owners, helping to create responsible guests, good neighbours and community harmony. And we also have a short video coming up from NoiseAware.
What do property damages, angry neighbors, and sound ordinance violations have in common? They all begin with a noisy guest at your property. That could have been resolved with NoiseAware. Through quick installation and 24-hour monitoring, NoiseAware is an essential tool that monitors noise levels on your property to help protect your profits and peace of mind. NoiseAware, rest easy.
So begin by introducing our Rockstars lineup for today, and we're going to start with my namesake, Paul, please.
Hi everyone, my name is Paul Johnson. I'm the editor of a luxury travel blog, which has been running since 2005, so from the very early days of blogging. I've actually been working in tourism for more than 30 years. And in addition to the blog, I also run my own luxury holiday rental business as well.
Excellent, thank you very much, Paul. And just to confuse people a little bit more, we've got Paola.
Yeah, hi. First of all, thanks for organizing this webinar, and the topic is great. So thanks so much, Paul, and short-term rentals. My name is Paola Gheis. I am a European consultant specialized in luxury rentals. Last year, I co-founded with Maurizio Battelli the Luxury Rentals event, which was the first conference and training exclusively devoted to short-term luxury rentals. And I'm also a family property manager and consultant. So I created a brand for a client who in these 6 villas, and now I manage the brand. So this is the scope of my sort of work in the luxury field.
Thank you very much, Paola. And last but not least, we have Mohannad.
Hey, good evening, everyone, and thanks, Paul and the team at Short-Term Rentals for setting this up. So my name is Mohannad. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Stella Stays. We are a Dubai-based hospitality company. We're building the future of hospitality in terms of managing a portfolio of furnished rentals We have a portfolio of over 500 apartments, villas, and penthouses spread out across the UAE, but also in Canada, in Bahrain, and in a few other cities that we're going to be launching as well.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Mohannad. Unfortunately, Ruben from Glamping Hub is unable to join, I'm afraid, but nevertheless, we've got a fantastic panel ahead of us. So I'm going to set up today's conversation by introducing a couple of context slides based on stories we've covered on short-term rentals, starting with a look at how we define luxury. So is it in what some people might call an overused term? We interviewed Rachel Angel here from Domestay and Aurélie Leperc from Edge Retreats, and you can hear those via the links in the chat provided. We also check in on how hotels are entering the short-term rental segment, from Marriott, Accor to Four Seasons, Relais Chateau, and how rentals are incorporating hotel-like service, including one of our own speakers there, Stella Stays. Representing the outdoor travel segment, we're going to be looking at the rise in popularity of glamping and a couple of companies representing that segment you can see here too, and also looking potentially at how they are redefining the luxury definition as we know it. And finally, we're going to be referring back to our series sponsor, Flywire's recently published Luxury Traveller Study. The link to the story is in the chat and you can download the full report there. So let's get right into the conversation. I'm going to start with Paul on this one and looking at how travellers' perceptions of luxury are actually comparing to pre-COVID-19. I don't want to sort of go on too much necessarily about the pandemic and more about how we're going to emerge from it. You yourself, editor of a highly successful blog, you've won a number of awards. I know you're too modest to talk about it there in your introduction, but can you talk to us about how you yourself might actually define luxury, and how do you believe that the people's perceptions of luxury have changed over time?
Yes, personally, I define luxury. Obviously, everybody's perception of luxury varies enormously, but I think it very much depends on service and the staff that are delivering the service. So for me, luxury hinges very much on that. For other people, it might be about chandeliers and gold taps and so on, but I think luxury goes far beyond that. It can be you don't have to spend a lot of money to experience luxury. Luxury can form part of a really unique experience, and that in itself is a luxury if you're experiencing something that only a handful of people have been able to enjoy. So that's where I stand on definition of luxury. Sorry, you were asking also how it's changed during the pandemic?
Yeah. Do you believe that these perceptions of luxury, if it is changing at all, has actually changed fundamentally since the pandemic? Is it going to be a long-term change, do you see?
I think during the pandemic, so I say during the pandemic as if it's finished, but obviously it's still ongoing. But at the height of the pandemic, I think what people were particularly seeking that could afford it would be privacy and space. I think those are the things that people particularly sought. Now, I think as the strength of the pandemic wanes, people will want to mix with other people. It's a sort of inherent human condition, if you like. But I think there will still be an element of that, just like we see people using card payments much more now than they did ever before, and that will probably be something that's around to stay. I think also this desire for privacy and space will be something that's still probably stronger than it was pre-pandemic.
And I know that you're also a holiday let owner near where you live in Kendal in Cumbria in the UK. Did you have a couple of sort of slides you wanted to show us as well?
I just had some photographs which I sent you, so I don't actually have them to hand, but I think I can share them if you're happy to bear with me 1 minute.
Oh,
sorry, 1 second. Sorry, I didn't know you were going to ask me to do that. So just 1 second, right. So I'll just share my screen. This is the apartment building where my holiday accommodation is. And in fact, the apartment that we own and rent out, I think, is this one here, where I don't know if you can see my mouse cursor, about halfway along the building on the first floor. So this is the River Kent in Kendal, where the sun is either, I think it's rising there, is where Kendal Castle is, which is actually where the Parr family lived, which is Catherine Parr was Henry VIII's 6th wife, the only one to outlive. So yeah, that's where our holiday accommodation is, and it's sandwiched between the Lake District and the Yorkshire Dales National Parks.
And going to that point before, what is of the luxury segment? I mean, you can talk to us about where you see your holiday let perhaps on that as well. But what tiers do you think have been most affected, and which have been less so during this time?
Within the luxury travel industry. So during the pandemic, I think the more affordable end of the luxury travel industry is probably what's been hit the most, much like the travel industry in general. Whereas if you were to take the very top 0.1% that fly by private jet and so on, I think they've been able to travel, other than those periods when government said you're not allowed to leave the country or whatever. I think those people have been able to travel very much in the same way as they would normally.
Thank you, Paul. With Paola as well. Listening to what Paul said, are those statements something that you would agree with, that there hasn't necessarily been too much of a fundamental shift in terms of the perception of what luxury is and what consumers?
Yeah, first I'd like to perhaps to express what is my definition of luxury, my view. And in some respect, it's similar to the one of Paul. I think I see it as a pie chart divided with 3 slices, where 1/3 is the importance of the quality of the property, 1/3 is the service, 1/3 is the experience. And this is how the affluent traveler, the high net worth individuals that we're targeting would equally evaluate each of these. So in terms of my view, I would start from a fairly standard definition that you can find in a dictionary, where luxury is a great comfort with great elegance, usually associated with a great expense. So from that definition, I would take out opulence, and I would take out waste, okay? And then I would embed all this into the importance of the territory and the valorization of what the territory is like. So this is where I work. This is part of my core value and the type of property that I look, type of client that I serve. There are lots of different, different things and different way to live luxury. This is personally, this is mine. So in terms of what did I see change, I think the fundamental of luxury are the same, and the wealthy traveler that for me is the target, is looking at those fundamental of quality, excellence, beauty, etc. I think in the in the back of people's mind there is a level of fear. It's a different fear now. It's not fear to getting sick and be dead. The last wave of COVID was fairly mild. Certain countries like Spain and others have positioned it as no longer a pandemic. It's a flu, so you have to treat it like that. Total communication chain shift. So the fear is more because there will be anyway restriction and isolation. If I get sick while I'm on holiday, I'm going to ruin myself, the vacation, and the people that are with me. So that's the fear. And this is leading to avoiding overcrowded places. So I think we need to keep a certain sensitivity in mind. And for example, a way to do it is when you offer whatever you have to offer, you say, we can give you total privacy and space, what Paul was alluding to. We can pamper you as much as you want, or we can bring the territorial experience at the villa. So we are, personally, I'm seeing a fairly good response to that approach, where I see the large family occupying a large villa, you know, those big vacations, the grandpa, the parents, the nephew, niece, etc., traveling from all over and meeting into one place, that not only want the personal chef, they want more entertainment. And you have to be organized and equipped to bring that, to sort of create a mini village inside the property. The other thing that I see is probably the moment of, it's the moment of non-branded location, because people want to avoid the crowd. And so there are lots of opportunities, because people, as they travel, they want to discover places where nobody has been, and out of the beaten track. So this is more on a macro level.
Luxury markets do you expect to flourish as we emerge from COVID?
Say it again, I'm sorry.
The luxury markets do you expect to flourish post-COVID as well?
Oh yeah, it already has. I mean, I see that a huge response in two ways, because the affluent traveler wants to travel because he wants to feel alive, he wants to travel. You know, this is what they normally do for work, and it's part of their sort of routine. And so that's the thing. And the non-affluent traveler as well wants to look for accommodation that have space and privacy. So sometimes when you have a large villa with lots of accommodation and they manage to get together a larger group, so also non-high net worth might be able to enjoy a so-called luxury property because of this desire to be in an open space with privacy and a big garden, etc. So that has helped our sector as well.
And we're going to revisit that because I know you've got some slides in a minute. I just want to hear from Mohannad first, over in Dubai. We'll come back to your note. But Mohannad, with Stella Stays, and know that you're active in Abu Dhabi, in Bahrain, in Canada now as well, and you're opening more than 100 holiday units, holiday home units in Abu Dhabi. Based on what you've heard so far as well, do you think travellers' perceptions of luxury are being determined more by product or by service?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question, right? And we spend a lot of time here at Stella Stays actually thinking about, what does luxury actually represent? And, we take a look at a lot of industries. We take a look at the retail industries, the clothing industries, the automotive industries, because ultimately our vision is to redefine hospitality. And given the fact that part of our portfolio is a luxury and premium portfolio, we have to think about how do we redefine luxury. And overall, if you really think about it, this whole concept of this whole perception of luxury is really relative, right? Is it really about the quality of the materials or the types of furnishings that you're going to find inside a villa? Is it the design? Is it the price tag? The answer is yes, right? But above all, what we're realizing is these are not the only criteria that are relevant. And especially being in Dubai, and we're in a market where hotels here are famously known for having, Versace furniture and 24-karat door handles and, granite marble tops all over the place. But when we look at the statistics and when we look at what's happening in terms of our market segment, right, furnished rentals, furnished villas, ultimately in the last 12 to 24 months, we're outperforming five-star hotels. And I think today more than ever, what we're realizing is what's key to luxury is not only around the finishings and designs. Yes, they're important, but it has to be centered around this idea of exclusivity, right? And how do you create something that's exclusive? What we realize is it's not just the product on its own and the service on its own. More than ever, they have to go in hand, right? And ultimately, this is usually what's going to be able to create a product that has that ability of being exclusive and that has that ability of giving a person the right of bragging about the product that they just used. And I think social bragging is more important than ever, especially when we take a look at different market segments, right? When you think about millennials versus other market segments, that whole perception is different. But ultimately, it's no longer a concept that, you know, we've seen back in the days where you can just walk into, you know, a luxury automotive dealership and just purchase a car. No, like, you want to feel the experience end to end. You want to feel it on their web presence. You want to be able to walk into the store. It's the way you're treated. It's the way you're communicated with. And that whole experience is ultimately going to be relative to the perception of luxury. And that's, you know, ultimately what we spend a lot of time thinking about. Yes, the designs, yes, the exclusivity of the units, but it's sometimes the little things. It's walking into the door of that villa and getting an automatic notification that says, you know, hey, Paul, you know, welcome to your Stella unit. We're right here if you need something. And those little messages today using tech can make an absolute difference in terms of that experience. And ultimately it creates that luxury ecosystem that a lot of our guests are looking for.
And I've already mentioned some of the markets that you're expanding into. It certainly sounds like an exciting time for your company, right? Why did you identify these markets in particular, and why do you think these are set up to flourish long term?
I mean, ultimately what we do is when we take a look at the markets that we're entering into, I mean, obviously there's research that's done into it, and we look into a few factors, right? One of the first factors that we look into, obviously, is regulations, right? And you talk about Abu Dhabi, and that's one of the markets that we recently got our licenses into. But like Airbnb actually came in and signed a memorandum of understanding with the government of Abu Dhabi. Those are extremely important things for us, right? Because it shows that the government is actually understanding the value and the opportunities that are available in those markets, especially when you take a look at what's happening globally. And a lot of the regulations that are being put into place. But so regulations is a key aspect. Obviously we look at what's the maturity of the market. In this region specifically, the maturity is still at the initial levels, right? So I've stayed in a lot of Airbnbs, and you know that it's pretty much a hit and miss. But in those regions, it's a significant hit and miss. And ultimately, we want to be able to bring that standard of holiday homes, furnished rentals up a level. So we take a look at the maturity of the market and just the overall numbers. Abu Dhabi's got more than 11 million visitors per year. It's a booming business hub. So these are the factors that we typically look into. But I would say that overall, we're very fortunate to be in a space that has a huge addressable market. There's a lot of white space. There's a lot of opportunities. The demand is there. I mean, Paul was talking about space, and space is important in a villa, but it's as important in an apartment that you can have as a one bedroom in comparison to a hotel, which is usually twice as small. So ultimately, there's a lot of white space. Regulations drive a lot of our growth, and that's typically what we look for in a lot of the markets that we enter into.
Interesting you mentioned about Airbnb's memorandum of understanding with Abu Dhabi. I believe this sort of relationship is also being sought in other cities and places around the world. So this could be quite a groundbreaking move there by Airbnb. Thank you very much for that, Mohannad. I want to refer back to Nate's and Flywire's recent study as well. It was called The Lux Life, Luxury Travel's Role in the Industry's Recovery. And we covered on short-term rentals, I think, a couple of weeks ago. And they were talking, just one of the key highlights that I got from the report was about the sort of individuals who are leading the travel industry recovery are those who've saved up money in lockdown and are looking further afield now for their unique vacation experiences. So I'm going to move on to the next point. And Paola, I know you've got some slides that you want to share as well. So I want to sort of delve a little bit into what the trends and standards of luxury now encompass. And I know you've got some interesting thoughts about that. Sorry, you're on mute, Paola.
All right, so me. Yeah. Yeah, on trends, you say, and one of the key trends which is in the mouth of everybody in the press continuously is sustainability, and at all levels, regulations, investments, finance tied to sustainability. I think the target clients were after the high net worth individuals are more and more conscious that they consume a fairly high amount of carbon footprint, and so they want to be more sensitive. So sustainability and the way you present your property from, let's say, the product itself, so the hardware, the architecture, the way it was renovated, the way you can sort of be smart in using energy, whether it's heating or air conditioning, matters, but also the way, you know, the consumption, that using, for example, water filter to avoid plastic bottle consumption, and being able to communicate that effectively, I think it will tap very well on a good number of guests, because there's also a certain level of guilt that is related to luxury. And so being able to live luxury with sustainability concern, I think it helps. It's a job as professional owner, property manager, we have to take into account in the way we equip, in the way we work, and its marketing opportunity as well. On the other hand, there is also another side of the sustainability, is the way you are linked into the territory, how much economy you are generating into the territory you're at, with your collaboration, integrating the work of artisan, the work of artists, the work of local producer. And it has a very strong appeal as well, because ultimately what you're going to do, you're going to deliver a holiday that is more meaningful, because I think our duty is to have our guests to have a deep appreciation, cultural appreciation of the place they're staying and the territory. So that is definitely one, sustainability. The other one is wellness. A lot of people travel to also be well. There's more and more cautious well in their body from a health perspective, but also in their mind. So offering services that address that point, I think it's key. And with luxury, you know, whatever was like a massage or a yoga class becomes a standard service. You want to make the extra stretch, you know, to become more exclusive, or, you know, offering something that because you've been to that particular place, you've been entitled to use, but everybody else isn't. That's the meaning of exclusive, and you've been lucky to have that chance. And regarding wellness, you know, there's a number of things that you can do to work on the spirituality as well of your guests, and propose that type of services. So I think these are fairly important trends. And the other one is that the level of expectation on services and on experience is raising a lot more. So you have to become really almost a travel advisor as a host, as a property manager, to you know, to make your client happy. So these are my three key.
If I may, what are the concepts or features? What do they actually have to kind of fulfill if they're going to be this true definition of luxury?
The true definition of, sorry.
So what do these luxury concepts or features, what do you think they fulfill to be classed as the definition of luxury?
Well, you have to, yeah. You have to, well, first there has to be, again, I go back and I draw back to my sort of paradigm, or my cardinal points of luxury, where handicrafts and human work elevated at the level of excellence. So you want to have the best, you know, the best providers offering you very niche and very customized things. I don't know if you are in a location, just I give you some example, if you like. If you're in a location with a spectacular view, why not call in an art historian that is, you know, competent and entertaining, that, you know, can show you what you have around. Why not to work with your yoga instructor who is peaked in spirituality, organize a gong bath, which is a little less common than a normal yoga classes. So you want to be going out of the ordinary a little bit, and also understand what people really want. So beside these studies that we all read and the tendencies that we are aware, then it's about also interacting and understanding what is it that drives and moves people, and you try to anticipate, because this is what luxury should do theoretically. You do not respond to requests. In real luxury, you basically dictate, or you should dictate what people should want. So that's my take.
Very much, Paola. A lot to digest there. And Paul, I'm interested because you've got this very broad overview of the whole luxury industry, whether it's short-term rentals, hotels, other types of asset classes as well. What types of trips or indeed transportation are you actually seeing most demand for those travellers who are seeking luxury?
Well, in terms of transportation, I think the huge growth area in the luxury travel market has been in the private jet industry. That's seen phenomenal growth. There's been a lot. I mean, the States is obviously well established on the private jet industry. I believe it's still been particularly strong throughout the pandemic. Even in Europe, private jets are becoming much more popular. I think the leading UK company, private air charter, was actually bought out by an American company, Wheels Up Inc., about a month ago. Even in Dubai, I know that Venture Global Holdings, they've seen an increase in about 60% last year just in the use of private jets. So I think people have obviously turned to private jets when they haven't been able to travel in the way that they might normally. But I see this as being an area of demand that's going to stick with some people as well. In terms of types of travel, I think another area which has seen a lot of growth is what they term workcations, where people can travel and take their work with them. Obviously, the pandemic's taught many people that they can work from home. Not everyone, obviously, but that they can sort of juggle their work and maybe make it work from different locations. So I read a lot of people going and staying places for a few months and then moving to another location and being able to enjoy different destinations, but also take their work with them. So I think that's another growth area. And as Paola alluded to, wellness breaks, I think have seen huge growth. People's mental health has been tested to a large extent in the last couple of years. And I think people are seeking a little more pampering and nurturing and so on. So I think those are the three areas where I've seen the biggest change.
And Paola's already alluded there to the mental health aspect. How key do you think that is a motivation for people's travel choices as well in this space?
Right now, or just general? Yeah, I think right now it's very high on people's priorities. I'm sure many of you and the people listening are feeling long overdue a break, whether that be just getting away, but with that, maybe being able to have a bit of a pamper as well and enjoy a bit of downtime. And after what has been for many people a very stressful period, whether it be for health reasons or financial reasons or whatever it may be.
Thank you very much, Paul. And Mohannad, I mean, the mental health aspect is something that perhaps gets highlighted more, to be honest, among my sort of generation, the Gen Z, millennial demographics there. And I know that you yourself, whether it's business travelers or leisure travelers, a lot of your guests are from those demographics too. So what luxury features are you seeing that are gaining most traction in these groups?
From millennials and Gen Zs, right? I think it's, this market segment is completely different than anything else, right? And ultimately, you got to understand what they want. I'd say the number one thing that we've noticed is just the space, right? And Paul is talking about those digital nomads that are, going into a few cities and spending 2-3 months and moving around. one of the aspects that we've noticed, you know, and that's dramatically changed our business is that, you know, we were in the business of hospitality to provide a place for people who are traveling. And ultimately what we realized during COVID is people are not only coming and staying with us for a few weeks, but people are actually starting to live in our units, right? And our average length of stay went from 3 nights to almost 30 days. And one of the key reasons for this is mainly the space, right? I mean, that's a luxury feature that's up there. And a lot of these millennials are traveling in groups and they're traveling for work or for pleasure, but ultimately they want that space. They want to be able to have it, whether it's in an apartment where you can have that, you know, that extra space in the living room, the kitchen, the balcony, or, you know, what we've seen a lot of them doing is just booking villas, right? They want to book those homes and have that extra space, the multi-bedroom, the collaboration, and just being able to access the services that we can offer, right? But, you know, I'd say another one is, you know, surprisingly for this demographic is crypto payments, right? So we introduced, surprisingly, like, you know, as a startup, we can do those things pretty quickly. And we introduced crypto payments about a month ago. And you wouldn't believe how many of our guests are actually paying us through crypto today. Like, it's just unbelievable. And you know, and surprisingly enough, I mean, maybe this is because we're a little bit spoiled here in Dubai, but most of those, you know, millennials that are paying through crypto, you know, are actually coming in through private jets as well. So we're helping arrange a few of those. So, you know, space to live, crypto payments is really up there. And then, you know, like ultimately it's technology. And it's the ability to have an app that guests can use. And how do you bring the lobby on the phone, and how do you create digital interactions where if I'm traveling to a location and I'm staying for a month, I don't necessarily want to pick up the phone or start sending an email and start requesting things like an airport pickup or have, you know, specific groceries available on arrival. But more and more what we're realizing, and it's ultimately, you know, you're realizing that it's almost a luxury feature expectation that you can communicate digitally, that you can use your phone to check in, that you can use your phone to request services, that it's hassle-free, that it's literally at the tip of your finger. And so, you know, what we're realizing with a lot of those guests is that's what's creating that experience, you know, and coming back to the perception of luxury from the previous question, and that experience is the service, which we're ultimately combining with the product. That's really cool. But, you know, I'm actually curious to know, maybe it's a Dubai thing here, but maybe from the panel, if anyone else has seen anything related to crypto payments in, you know, some parts of Europe, or maybe Nate, you've seen something in the US in hospitality specifically.
Yeah, does one of our other panelists want to come in on that point?
I'm dealing mostly with advertisers rather than consumers directly in terms of when it comes to payments. So in that respect, it's still traditional payment methods for me, at least.
All right.
Yeah, Mohannad, I'll say, you know, anecdotally, we've been asked at Flywire a lot whether or not we accept crypto. We're not in a place where we accept it today. It is very interesting, though, to see that more and more folks are starting to present that as an option. I think it's really interesting moving forward. Obviously, being in the payment space that Flywire is, we keep kind of a pulse on that stuff. But no, I just think it's fascinating that you guys are actually accepting it today. Curious to know your thoughts on how sustainable that might be for certain businesses. They only accept crypto versus, you know, taking the traditional methods of payment as well.
Yeah, well, the good thing about what we're seeing now, as opposed to what we saw like a year ago, is the market is getting regulated, right? So KYC, know your customer, is becoming more and more important, especially from a business point of view. You know, obviously we're a fully audited company, so you can't just receive crypto, and you gotta, like, you know, you need to make sure that you know who's paying you. But a lot of these mechanisms are in place right now. There's a very strong foundation. And, you know, I'd love to share some more ideas. You know, if you have any questions offline, we can definitely go for it. But yeah, it's been, I mean, we just received a few of them today, and it's just like, that's how we want to pay you. And we're coming specifically to you because of those payment methods.
Your contact details in the chat, Mohannad, as well. So anyone who wants to learn more about that, your thoughts on cryptocurrency, we can certainly take that conversation after this webinar. You kind of answered my next question actually as well, about the leisure and business travel. It's interesting, yours and Paul's thoughts align as well, very much on the workcation element there. So Paul, I'm going to come back to you as well, and we've heard a lot of different observations already in this webinar. I'm just wondering what you think in terms of, do you see the perception of luxury being something that can just be bought, or is it something that now is much more unique, exclusive as a word that's been underlined several times already? Where do you come from that?
For me personally, when I'm traveling, I don't sort of see a direct alignment between money and luxury necessarily. I know that's going to be different for different people. Some people will believe that money buys luxury, but I think there's luxury to be found in many places which don't necessarily demand payment. So, for example, going to a location where there's a fabulous view miles from anywhere, that in itself is a luxury. It's to be able to enjoy maybe a sunset in the Serengeti away from other people. Obviously, you need money to get to the Serengeti, but there are lots of experience out there that don't necessarily dictate that you have to pay in order to enjoy them. Now, obviously, money does buy experiences as well. So the two do go hand in hand to some extent, but they're not. They can be mutually exclusive, if you like. I myself have a camper van which I travel around with my family in, and many people wouldn't necessarily regard that as luxury travel, but there is an inherent luxury in being able to. I mean, one of the last times we used it, we were up in Scotland, and we just pulled up one night alongside a loch and just had the view to ourselves, and it was really magical, you know. And yet it didn't even cost us a night's accommodation. So.
Yeah, thank you very much, Paul, on that. I guess, Paola, are you on the similar lines of thinking? You come at it from a slightly different perspective with your conference and your consulting business, but do you think the definition of luxury is fixed or is moldable over time?
Yeah. No, regarding what Paula said, I yes and no agree, meaning I agree in the sense that not all the experience and the concept of exclusivity is not tied to money. It's tied to be like, for example, seeing that particular sunset or sleeping in your car, you just were by yourself. And so is the absence of crowd. But then, you know, when you have to sleep at night somewhere after you've done your low-cost experience, if you're moving in that space, at least based on the definition, I think you want to meet certain standard. What was the following question? You are on mute.
That's the first time that's ever happened. Our definition of luxury, is it something that is fixed? Is it sort of moldable over time? Yes.
No, I think so. Yeah, I think so. I think you want to be contemporary, and I think you want to understand society, what is the spirit of the times, and how things are moving, and how passion, interests, hobbies of your targets are evolving, and then you want to adjust that and modify it with the changes of the time. So definitely yes. So that's my take now, and in 10 years, in 5 years, if I will be still in this business, it will be different. It's likely to be different.
Is that because the kind of traits or the demands of travelers is changing along with that?
Because we change all the time. We change every day. Society changes. People's mind changes. You know, look at that: sustainability, wellness, mindfulness, consciousness. I mean, how popular were these things 20 years ago? We're not talking about ages ago. And now they are. So what can we expect in the future will be different for sure in some respect.
And I think this whole topic is also closely intertwined with the whole professionalisation of the short-term rental space and the luxury segment. So we've already discuss sort of the regulation coming in Abu Dhabi, and we're seeing it in other markets around the world. But what do you think will be the impact of the increased regulation on the holiday home sector in the market? And
yeah, I mean, and listen, they're huge, right? They're extremely significant, and remember, we're in a space that's very fragmented, right? So the entry level for companies to get started and do holiday lettings is pretty low, and that's a great thing, right? It's a great opportunity for a lot of individuals, for a lot of companies to get started, and it's created a lot of opportunities, and it's actually helped us create this whole ecosystem, which is now recognized globally. But ultimately, regulations are important, right? Because you can have great companies that are going to have a great product. But at the same time, you got to think about the guests. Guests want to be able to trust that, the place that you're booking actually exists, that there's going to be a host, that there's going to actually be a property, and we've seen in the news across the globe that there have unfortunately been many incidents of guests ultimately not getting what they want, and ultimately, this whole market fragmentation is going to have to get revised through regulations. And ultimately, when we take a look at what's happening globally, I mean, I think the UAE over here has got it great, and honestly, it's a great example, especially since we analyze a lot of the markets when we want to be able to go in and launch. What they've done here is they've really studied the market. First of all, they've understood that yes, there's an absolute need. This is the evolution. This is what we need to have, and ultimately be able to have this offering where companies can, be able to provide this diversified portfolios for the presidential suite at the Four Seasons, but it can also be these, ultra luxury villas on the beach or on the mountainside, or even, up in the urban areas. And so in the UAE over here, they document it really well. So you've got these 40 pages that document, just like you'd have, from a hotel point of view. You have inspections, you have verifications that are happening. There are mediators in case there's an issue that happens, in case a refund must occur. So it's a very sophisticated system, right? And I think this is great, and it's allowing the market to flourish, and it's allowing guests to be able to experience this when they're traveling, which is very important for all of us. There are other markets where there's progress. I mean, you take a look at a place like Canada, there's progress, but they're not there yet. Ultimately, there's this big fear, right, of being able to introduce something like this in the market for multiple reasons, right? It might be because of, the current number of tourist licenses that are already offered, or it might just be a matter of, protecting some of the existing hospitality companies that are out there. But the reality is, and we've seen it with Uber, and, Uber is all over the world, whether we like it or not, regulations are going to have to come in at some point. They're extremely important. And I think ultimately, it's not only going to benefit, companies that really understand the art of hospitality and that can offer, a luxury product that meets the demands of the market, but it's also for the guests, and it comes back to trust, for guests to be able to trust that there's a silk bed at the end of the day when we arrive.
Wow. So I'm jumping ahead here slightly, but I know we've had a question in from Catherine Ryan from Superhog. I think it might be quite directed at you, Mohannad, as well, based on what you've just said. And it's surrounding the perception of guest verification, screening, and damage protection within the luxury rental space. How do you see that at the moment? Are you seeing more verification coming in of the guests?
Yeah, I mean, 100%. So guest vetting is extremely important, and I think, there's a lot to learn from the traditional hospitality business. You got to understand the mechanisms that are done there, verify the IDs, make sure that you get them in. We've got a very simple process where you submit your ID, you submit a picture, you make sure that it combines and that it actually makes sense. Same thing, making sure that the person that's booking is the person that's paying. So there's a lot of lessons that we can learn. And I think a lot of these lessons can be enhanced and simplified through technology, where you can submit those IDs electronically, you can do automatic verifications. There are a lot of platforms out there today that will allow you to assess also and verify guests based on different factors. I know that it's huge in the US. So it's, so vetting is important, right? But you're never going to get it 100% right. That's for sure. And then ultimately it's about, I think the second part of the question was about how do you make sure that, you manage damages and things of that sort. And, once again, it's looking at the best practices from hotels, right? Things like security deposits, putting holds in place, being able to have insurance where you need it. So there's just so much that's out there. And when you do the research, you just see that there's a lot of options, especially in today's age, where you can actually help simplify and minimize a lot of the impacts that can happen from some of these guests that might be coming in. And making sure, I think it's also really important to just make sure you can convey the message on what the house rules are, you know, and sometimes that's difficult, you know, and talking about spending a lot of time. We spend a lot of time making sure we can validate that our guests have received house rules. I mean, a lot of our properties are quite luxurious, and there's neighborhoods and there's communities and there's neighbors. So you want to be sure that those house rules are really well understood, that the community guidelines are very well understood, and that they're enforced essentially, right? So these are a lot of the practices that we use to make sure that we have guests vetted and that we don't disturb too much what's happening.
Fantastic. I hope that's answered Catherine's question there.
Can I ask a question to Mohannad? So, but ultimately, do you withhold a deposit, security deposit from the guests, or no?
100%, right? And we do it in different, yeah, we do. You have to, right? And, you know, some guests push back, but, you know, there's great options out there. You know, we're working a lot with Stripe these days, and, you know, there's a lot of creative ways where you can do holds, you know, without necessarily pulling the funds out of an account. So there's a lot of creative ways, but at the end of the day, there's one rule that I enforce here, and trust me, it's sometimes a challenging one, but it's no security deposit, no check-in, right? So you got to make sure that happens.
Okay, thanks.
And of course, Stella Stays is one of these property management companies that's bringing this hotel-like service. But I think it's also fair to say that it's coming the other way, with more hotel brands coming into short-term rental space. So, Paola, I'll come to you on this first. But how do you see, if you do see the lines blurring now between luxury hotels and serviced accommodation? What are your observations of this so far?
Sorry, was that to me or Paola? Yeah. So yeah, definitely there is a merging happening between the two. I mean, I'm going back many years now, but it used to be the case that vacation rental accommodation in the UK, at least, was, particularly the luxury end, it wasn't like it is today. So even in the luxury end, you might pay extra for bedding or something like that if we go back 20 or 30 years ago. That seems unthinkable now. And obviously we've seen over the subsequent decades, we've seen an improvement in quality and service and so on, and down to the obviously the serviced accommodation. So essentially vacation rental accommodation, which is staffed and so on, and that's becoming much more akin to a hotel. Meanwhile, we've got hotels offering sort of accommodation that's not a standard room or even a suite, but maybe an entire apartment and so on, and apart hotels as well. So yeah, without doubt, there's a merging between the two. Yeah.
Paola as well. From a different angle, do you see the investment of luxury hotels into these rental offerings? I think you're well positioned to answer this. Do you see it as an opportunity for the sector to learn more from these hotels, or a challenge to their existence?
Yeah, I think it's competition. So competition brings improvement. I mean, if you do not step up as a luxury property owner or luxury property manager and raise the quality of what these super branded luxury villa do, you're gonna be left out. So in that sense, it can be an opportunity, because, you know, think about the brand of Four Seasons that I love. I found it so inspiring. See the quality of the communication. I mean, they sell the dream so well, and the majority of owners and a lot of agencies as well who work in luxury do not invest with the same idea in mind to sell the dream. They're just beautiful photos. There is no styling, there is no modeling used, which ultimately drives empathy. So this is something I always very keen on, and I always feel very strongly about it, because property should be styled by very competent stylists who can help you to drive the dream. Otherwise, what is going to happen is that those 5 shiny stars of the Four Seasons and all the other hotels are going to shine on the vacation rental, and an unknown vacation rental, as much as it is beautiful, will not be chosen in, you know, if you are in a situation where you have to pick one or the other. On the other hand, it's also an opportunity, because if you are not a corporate, I mean, you need to work a lot well on your USP and make sure you can find your differentiations for this type of hospitality driven by, on vacation rental, driven by luxury hotels, because there is a lot that can be done and can be the level of flexibility, the level of capillarity that you can get in a territory and evaluate that and offer that as a USP. I think it's a great opportunity. But it's definitely, you know, a competition, and we're gonna see the impact of that in the years to come.
And just before I get to our final questions for our panel, I've seen that we've had a question in the Q&A from one of the audience. And Paola, I think just adding on to what you say, because I think it was when you were talking about sustainability earlier. So I'm going to ask Guy's question about, do you see sustainability initiatives impacting your bottom line?
Is that a question to me, to all? What is that?
Paola.
If it is on the bottom line.
You see sustainability initiatives impacting your bottom line?
They're also impacting the top line, for sure, because you can attract in terms of improving the margin, yes, I mean, that's why you do the improvements in the efficiency of a property. So yes, so the level of maintenance, if you're referring to that, the, you know, electricity bills and all these things, for example, from an architectural standpoint. So the answer is yes, but I think this is going to be an expensive move outside luxury, because the government is require more and more certification. You know, you need a certification of quality or energy level to sell or to rent a property. And eventually it will be mandatory to reach a certain level, and to reach that certain level of efficiency, it will be expensive, because you have to redo a number of things. So we have to be prepared to, you know, to do it properly. Sustainability is a nice idea, but then put it into practice, it's also quite expensive. It can be quite expensive.
Excellent. Well, I mean, Sky, please do hang around in the chat. We've got a 2-minute countdown before we finish. I just want to sort of quickly get like a 30-second prediction from each of you about what your predictions are for the short-term rental industry, the luxury segment in the coming years. So, Paul, I'll just come to you first. What's your number one prediction?
Well, I personally think that this is going to be an area that continues to grow and go from strength to strength. I think people are seeking quality in greater numbers, and they find it in this kind of accommodation.
So, and Mohannad, do you see the sort of a similar scope for growth in the industry in the coming years?
Yeah, I think there's going to be. I think the growth is going to be huge, and you know, I'd say the big prediction is really around innovation and diversification of options. You know, when you think of luxury, you think of the Four Seasons, as Paola was saying. But I think the options of the future are going to be much more than that. It could be, you know, it could be a luxury yacht that you're renting, or it could be a beautiful glass-based dome that's in the middle of the desert with a 5-course meal plan that's prepared for you, and the ability to just, you know, sit under the night and stargaze into the beautiful sky. So I think diversification is going to be huge in terms of the definition of luxury, and it's going to be driven by millennials and Gen Z for sure.
And Paola, is there something equally that excites you most in the industry?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think there will be a lot more. There will be a bigger growth, a big growth, more competition. So we need to step up, and And also, I think we will see the role of property manager working in luxury and owner to become more picked in consulting, being really a travel advisor to fine-tune the experience you want to propose, because the clients are becoming more and more demanding.
Well, thank you to all of our contributors, to Paul, to Paola, and to Mohannad. It's been a fantastic conversation. And of course, to Nate from Paola for attending too. I've just got a couple of slides to run through before we finish. Apologies, we're slightly over time, but just want to show some slides with you now. So we're excited that our annual Shorties Awards for the global short-term rental industry are taking place in London on Wednesday, the 8th of May. We're in the middle of an entry period right now. We've got 20 different categories that you can enter. You can enter as many categories as you wish and are eligible for no cost by the deadline of Friday, the 11th of March. I can see we've got the link there to submit your entries. And of course, we're very excited to be back in person this year. And Nate and Flywire, again, are sponsoring this year's event. We're back on Tuesday, the 5th of April for the next Rockstars webinar on the new categories of flexible living. You'll be glad to know that I won't be doing any of this contortion here. You can see on screen now, but I would recommend signing up for the session. The link again is in the chat, and you can also now scan the QR code on the screen. For sponsorship opportunities, please do contact my colleague Katie. Her details are on the screen for you now. Big thank you again to Flywire and NoiseAware for sponsoring our Rockstars series and this session. We're going to keep the session open for another 2 minutes, just so you can jot down any details or click on any of the links we've provided in the chat or connect with our speakers. Feel free to contact us via our various channels on the screen now. All that's left for me to say is thank you again for listening, and to all of our speakers, and we'll see you again very soon. Thank you very much.